and asleep.
Ride 'em, cowboy. No silver spurs, no 6 guns on his hip. It's 30 below and the wind cuts to the bone, and the cattle stand half blinded by the snow waiting for food. Start pitching that hay, cowboy, or any herd come spring. You think a cowboy's life is romantic? Just try it in winter sometime. A cowboy is a part-time farmer, too. He has to grow hay for the cattle to eat during the winter. As the summer comes to an end, he's out there working the hay stackers. Some of the old-fashioned horsepower stackers still lift their rakes slowly against the sky. But more and more machines are coming onto the landscape and making the cowboy's life easier. Modern stackers, powered by trucks instead of horses, have cut down a lot of time. But haying is still a long, hot chore, as any cowboy with hay down the back of his neck will tell you. The tractor and its multiple uses are revolutionizing this part of the cattle industry. Even so, hay is a major project on the ranch. In the spring, the meadows are soaked with water and the feed crop shoots up fast and high. Then the water is cut off, and the summer heat dries the crop so it can be mowed and stacked. Finally, the long drive came to an end. The cattle stood grazing quietly. The men unsaddled their horses. Even the dogs rested. And where was I? 1.5 miles behind. My horse and I had reached a mutual understanding. I was to walk, he was to carry the saddle, and no charges would be brought by either party. I took quite a kidding from the boys when I arrived, but I was so glad to sit down I didn't care. We were 12,000 feet up and it got cold that night. We needed the campfire and plenty of hot coffee to keep warm. And as we sat there, I got the strange feeling that time had moved backwards, and that all this was happening 100 years ago. And now the herds are rounded up and driven down into the valley again. The drumming of hoofs sets long echoes rolling across the mountain passes. Down from the pastures they come, each herd with a different brand on its flank. unison, the rodeo is livening things up. This is the Cowboy's big day. Now he gets a chance to show his stuff. The everyday work of the boys from the ranch is transformed into spectacular events that show their skill and daring. First comes calf roping. The cowboy has to rope and throw the calf, then bind 3 legs together in a knot that holds. The judges time him to a split second. The horses are trained to keep the rope tight so the calf can't get back on his feet. If they don't, this is what happens. I got my first look at cowboys in action when I went out to take pictures of them branding calves. And now it began to look more like the Old West. Cattle still have to be branded as a precaution against getting lost, strayed, or stolen. The brand is the owner's identification mark. Branding burns away the hair and only sears the skin enough to leave a scar. Progress may be slow, but there's never a dull minute. Cowboys are contrary beasts. One may suddenly break and run for the nearest cliff and have to be driven back before he falls and kills himself.